4-movie collection of Martin Scorsese. I've heard he's a great director, and I'll have to check it out. I still haven't seen any of these 4, but I think I might see The Aviator soon. Martin Scorsese is now my favorite filmmaker. So yes, before 2021 I had not seen a single Martin Scorsese movie, and now I can say he is my favorite filmmaker of all time. And I can finally do my top 10 favorite Martin Scorsese movies. That's what we're doing today. What is your favorite Martin Scorsese film? What are your opinions on his filmography as a whole? And what is your favorite one? I want to know your opinions. And before we get into this, I have one honorable mention, and that is Hugo. This is a good movie, but I didn't fully love it. I think it was cool to see him do a lighter, PG family film, but I also didn't quite love it. There are some flaws. And also, before we get started, The Wolf of Wall Street will not appear on this list. I know that's another favorite of a lot of people, but I'm 15. Not gonna watch that movie. Without further ado, let's get into my top 10. The best part of King Comedy, easily, is the fact that you can never really tell what parts are reality and what parts are Rupert Pupkin's fake reality. It's really fascinating to watch and think about what's going on inside this character's mind and which scenes actually happened in his real life. It's kind of the origin of the unreliable narrator, where you can never really be sure that what we're seeing is actually what happened. I also really liked seeing De Niro play a super different role, and there's a lot about this movie that's just so different and unique, and I really like it for that. The film was really weird, and it paid off. Also, the ending is great when it shows his actual comedy performance, and the fact that he benefited from doing all those horrible things to get on the show, whether that was part of his dream reality or not. It's a very good movie, and I know everyone likes to compare this to Joker, but if we're doing that, I do like Joker a little bit more than this. The Aviator is one of many films from Scorsese about a man losing his sanity and grip on reality, and while it's not his best in that genre at all, it's still a pretty great film. Leonardo DiCaprio delivers a great performance, as you'd expect, and watching this character slowly descend into madness was quite disturbing, but so well done. I had no idea Howard Hughes was such an interesting dude, but Scorsese made it super engaging to watch. I think the actual filmmaking that went into this movie is impressive. It's just a very well-made movie with the cinematography and performances. Once again, this is definitely not his greatest character study at all, and the actual purpose and message of this movie seems kind of non-existent compared to films like Taxi Driver and King Comedy, but come on, it's still very well made. But then again, that's any movie on this list, so I definitely can't put it any higher than it already is. I came into Gangs of New York excited to see Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio in the same film, but I actually think this is the worst DiCaprio performance that I've seen. It was the first time that he teamed up with Scorsese, and I definitely think he's improved over the years. On the other hand, Daniel Day-Lewis is incredible here. I've only seen him in 3 movies, and he's amazing in each one. Every time he was on screen, he captured my attention, so he might be the best part of this entire film. A big thing with Scorsese mob movies is wondering if the runtime will bother you. For this one, I really don't think it did. I was engaged the whole time. It was interesting to see Bill slowly find out who Amsterdam was, and once he did find out, the film is about Amsterdam carrying on what his father started, and I really like that. Now, my flaws lie in the second act of the film. This could have been a shorter movie because there's a lot of unnecessary stuff in the middle section, but overall, Gangs of New York is the first of many great gangster mob movies on this list. Taxi Driver was not the perfect character study that I wanted it to be, but it's still a very unique and great film. Like I was just saying about The Aviator, this is yet another Scorsese film about a really flawed, crazy person. Travis in this movie is a pretty insane guy, and he makes you feel uncomfortable throughout the whole thing. There is a plotline in here that I find extremely disgusting and disturbing, which is the point, but it still prevents me from making this a favorite. But my favorite part is easily the ending. We see how Travis wants to do something to help the city, but he goes about it in the worst way possible, by killing these people. He even expects to be rewarded for killing them, and that's what we see in his dream reality at the end of the movie. That is super fascinating, and I love that aspect of the film. There were some moments where I had no idea what Travis's intentions were, so it's not a perfect masterpiece in my opinion, but it's obviously still great, just not quite as amazing as many might say it is. Casino is a lot like Goodfellas in a lot of ways. First of all, obviously, it's Scorsese, De Niro, and Pesci teaming up in another film, and whenever that happens, it's going to be something special. But also, this film really does have a lot of the same magic as Goodfellas. They make the world of casinos so interesting to be in, just like Goodfellas made the whole world of the mob so interesting to be in. Maybe I should stop comparing these two films, but it's kind of impossible. They're very similar in the way that they're made, and though Goodfellas is definitely better, Casino is pretty amazing as well. For some reason, I don't think the narration worked quite as well, and I thought there would have been a better way to tell this story besides narration, but whatever, it's fine. The reason this isn't any higher is because there's not much of a message or anything to connect to. However, the world building is still top-notch, and it's another very immersive Scorsese project that I really enjoyed. With The Departed, I think when it comes to the filmmaking, it is absolutely perfect. There's not really a flaw with the film, and you can tell how much fun it would have been to make and shoot this movie. One personal issue I have with it, though, is the fact that it is 240 F-words. That definitely did bother me after a while, but seriously, everything else is amazing. The cast is stacked to the brim with amazing actors, with the standouts being DiCaprio, Damon, and Nicholson. They are all phenomenal, but probably the best thing about this movie is the character dynamics. DiCaprio is a cop undercover as a mobster, and Damon is a mobster undercover as a cop. That's an incredible concept, and as you'd expect, it's also executed perfectly. That ending is absolutely insane, and I don't really have anything else to say. The Departed is just a phenomenal film that easily held my attention all the way through. Shutter Island might be the best psychological thriller I've ever seen. It's not exactly a horror movie, but it feels just as tense and scary as one. This film has such an atmosphere that I can't describe, but it makes the film so immersive, and just the way that they created this atmosphere, with the way the camera moved, along with the music, it has this vibe that's so unique, and that's why the whole film was so intriguing for me. Leonardo DiCaprio maybe gives my favorite performance from him in this film, and every performance is amazing, but I think the most underappreciated aspect of this movie is the character of Andrew Laeddis. The way that he decided to get past his trauma was to make up his own fantasy life as Teddy Daniels. It's an amazing concept, and the character was explored so well. Overall, it was the super unique atmosphere and mystery that kept me interested for the whole runtime, but it was that ending and the character that made me really love the movie. Also, that final line. Just, wow. This film is pretty much another masterpiece from a year filled with great movies. Which was 2010, by the way. Goodfellas was my introduction to Scorsese, and what a great one it was. It is just the perfect representation of the mob life in film, and it brings us into this world so incredibly well. The whole experience is so immersive, and we want to find out what happens next, because we're following the Henry Hill character every step of the way. It's told through his perspective, so when he says that he's always wanted to be a gangster, We are in his world. This film goes from making the mob seem like the perfect life to showing how quick your friends would be to betray you. When you watch this movie, you finally understand why Scorsese is so fascinated by the life of the mob. Obviously, this film has some amazing performances and cinematography. I mean, it's just one of the great examples of a perfect film. The reason it's not number 1 or number 2 is because there's not as much to connect to. It's got a story to tell and a message to send, but you definitely can't sympathize with the main characters. For that reason, it's not my absolute favorite, but man, is it a fantastic film. What a movie, what a filmmaker. The two most recent Scorsese films, Silence and The Irishman, are both some of the greatest and most thought-provoking films ever made. Silence in specific shows a very different side to Scorsese that we had never really seen before, and he unsurprisingly did an incredible job with it. Now I could talk about how well made this film is and blah blah blah. The cinematography is amazing and Garfield and Neeson are amazing, which is all absolutely true, no doubt. But at the end of the day, those aren't the reasons that I love this movie so much. Silence is in my top 10 favorite movies because it made me think more than almost every other film. This story about Christians being tortured and killed for their faith is immediately something to talk about, but the film uses it to the fullest extent. It explores questions like, why does God seem to go silent in the most difficult times, like the events in this movie, and secondly, it made me question what would I do in these situations, and what would God want us to do in these situations. Silence is a film that personally connected with me, definitely mostly because of my faith, but I also think everyone should watch this movie because there's something for everyone in it. I knew I would like Silence, but I had no idea it would surpass so many of these films and blow me away this much. It is a true achievement in film by the greatest director of all time. And yet, there is one more film to talk about. Honestly, I think The Irishman is one of the best movies ever made. It is an impossibly great film that I thought about for weeks after first seeing it. This is the best acted movie I've ever seen, with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino all giving incredible performances. I also do have a video essay on this film about the Frank Sheeran character because that is really the reason I love this movie. It's a perfect character study that I was fully invested in for all 3.5 hours. It is just so easy to get immersed into the filmmaking and character development in The Irishman, and that's why it was never even close to boring. While Goodfellas was a really fast-moving, crazy mobster film that built the world up perfectly, The Irishman felt like a more personal and more character-focused story. The first 2 hours set everything up and got me invested in the characters so that the third act could become one of the most effective endings that I've ever seen. As we watch this character reflect on his life and his mistakes, it's really thoughtful and emotional. This film showed the ways that the mobster life was like a trap for Frank Sheeran, and seeing his regret in the third act is beyond amazing. There's no way I can do this movie justice. There's just no way. So take my word for it and know that it is a masterpiece. Martin Scorsese is obviously known for his work in the mob and crime genre, but somehow he outdid himself once again with The Irishman. It's like the movie that all of his movies were leading up to, which is absolutely amazing. You might even call it the endgame of Scorsese, even though I'm sure he'll continue to make great films. I can't get enough of this one, and it's one of the all-time great movies ever made, in my opinion. So even though The Irishman was number 1, we still need to talk about number 0, and that is Shark Tale. Scorsese didn't direct Shark Tale, but he did star in it as a pufferfish. That automatically makes this the best movie ever made, and that's why it comes in at number 0. So thanks for watching, everyone. That was my top 10 Martin Scorsese films. I've already done top 10 Spielberg and top 10 Hitchcock. If you want to check those videos out, they'll be over there in a minute. Also, if you noticed, the camera quality is a little better. I got a new phone, and I think the camera quality looks a bit better. But anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.